Hi, my name is Ewan McColl, and if you're watching this, that probably means that you volunteered to assist me in building an owl box for my Eagle project, in which case, thank you. In this video, we will be going over all the different parts and components to making your owl box, so we can help you along if there is anything that I'm not able to cover while on Zoom with you. If you volunteered to be in my Eagle project, you will have been provided a small bag of components alongside your wood pieces. In this small bag, you will find 34 wood screws, 4 long L screws, 4 sets of hinges, a drill bit, which you will be using to screw in the wood screws, as well as 5 extra wood screws, a single brush for applying wood glue, and a bottle of non-toxic wood glue. In addition to the components that will be given in your pouch, you will also be given all of the required pieces of wood to build your owl house. Among these pieces, you will find a front, a back, a bottom, a left side, a right side, a top, and a divider. All of these parts have been labeled with a number that has been assigned on the instructional list that we have given you. Do mind that both the top and right side wood pieces are 2 parts, as they will be 2 different sides of a hinge. On top of the materials that you will be given, you will also be given 2 informational packets. The first of which showing the materials needed, an exploded image of the owl box and all of its parts, as well as all of the parts corresponding numbers that are referenced in this second sheet that you are given, which is labeled Assembling the Box. And on this you will find the steps of assembly, as well as additional technical images of the box pieces once put together. It is highly recommended that throughout this process you do wear gloves. Protective working gloves are very important to keep your hands safe, as this wood does tend to splinter. And on top of that, it is recommended to wear eye protection, and if you like, ear protection. The eye protection is very important, as you will be working with powered tools such as hand drills during this process. Now moving on to the assembling the box instructions. On this initial block of text, it tells you to drill pilot holes and apply a thin layer of glue before attaching the pieces of wood together with the screws. Now, my dad and I have taken the liberty of doing the pilot holes for you, so now all you need to do is apply that thin layer of glue on both sides of the wood that is being connected with the screws, and make sure to do that with every single piece of wood that you will be screwing together during this process. Now on to the steps of assembly. Step number 1 is attaching the back, piece number 2, to the left side, piece number 4. Now, when assembling pieces together, always make sure that the side with writing on it is on the inside of the structure rather than the outside. Now for pieces, the left side and the back, make sure that the left side has the part with 2 holes on the bottom of the structure, not the top. Now what we are going to do first is we are going to take 3 of our screws and we are going to drill them into our 3 pilot holes just so that they barely penetrate and come out the other side. What that's going to let us do is when we apply the glue to attach left side to the back, it'll sink in a little bit, making it not move around so much once we've glued it. Now, once you have drilled through these 3 pilot holes, it should come out just about that much. Enough where you can feel that there is a point, but not so much that it's going to create distance between your 2 pieces of wood. Now what we're going to do from here is we're going to apply our thin layer of glue to both sides. That means the top of this and this side right here. This is going to not so much hold it together as much as it is going to be a seal against the elements. Now here we have our first successful connection between the back piece and the left side. Now sometimes when you're working with plywood, what happens is when you drill the screw into the piece, it can sometimes crack like that, and that's totally okay. That's just one of the things that happens when you're working with plywood. Now, when that happens, you can totally feel free to fill that up with a bit of glue if you want to close up that hole. Now our next step is going to be attaching the bottom, piece number 3, to the back and left sides, pieces 2 and 4. Now we're going to do the same thing like we did with attaching the left to the back, in that we are going to be drilling a little bit into our pilot holes with our screws, just to the point where the screws protrude out the other end to give it a bit of grip when gluing. Remember that we are going to be drilling into all 6 pilot holes. That is the 4 pilot holes on the back of part back, and the 2 pilot holes on the left side. And then we will be gluing just like we did with the left and back side connection. Now that we've attached the bottom to the left side and back side, what we will be doing is we're going to be adding the front onto this. Remember that when you add the front, it is not sitting on top of the bottom, rather it is pressing up against it. When attaching this, we're going to do the same thing we did on the others. We're going to go into our pilot holes just till they barely protrude, and then we're going to be gluing and doing the same thing we did on all the other sides. So at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, this kind of looks like a house, or at least a box. And if you're thinking that, your noggin's going the right way. Our next step is to put in the divider. Now the divider is going to go inside the box right about here. Now you might be wondering what these little pilot holes on the front of your box are for. That is what is going to ground our divider into our box. So we're going to be doing the same thing with drilling our screws just slightly into our pilot holes so that they protrude on the other side, and then we're going to glue it on just like with all the other pieces. So our next step is going to be putting on the right side. Now if you remember from earlier, our right side is split into an upper and lower segment. The lower segment being a little trapdoor that you can open up to clean out the box. Now, what we are going to be doing is we're going to be taking the larger segment, the upper segment, that is not the door, and we're going to be putting that on the top side, and we're going to be attaching that the same way we've done all the others. Pilot hole screw, pilot hole screw, pilot hole screw, just till it protrudes, thin layer of glue, and wait. Make sure to leave there will be a large open area here where we will be placing our hinges, and those hinges are going to attach to our opening section on the bottom of the right hand side. So our next part that we're going to be putting on is the top. Now our top, like our right side, is actually 2 pieces, a stationary piece and a hinging piece. We are going to be once again putting on the stationary piece that is going to be sitting right on top. Now your holes should line up with the outer wall of the left hand side, as well as the divider down the center. So your pilot holes, you're gonna have quite a few for this one. You're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And that is going to fit nice and snug on top. Same thing, driving through until barely protruding out the other ends, thin layer of glue, you know the drill. So our next step is we are going to be attaching the opening clean out door portion of the side. Now that should look like this. There will be 2 little indents. Those are supposed to be there. We will be attaching that here using your hinges that you have been provided. Your hinges come with small screws. They are Phillips head, so that's the little plus sign ones, and you will be attaching those into both sides. Reminder, this is the one step where you will not be gluing the door. Do not glue the door shut. If you were living in a house and someone glued your door shut, I think it would be pretty unpleasant too. So make sure, do not glue this section shut. This section is supposed to open and close like this, so you can clean it out. Now, a bit more in depth, since this is a moving part, what I'm doing is I have placed my two hinges equidistant from the center, and I'm holding them down with my fingers, and then I am doodling in within the holes so that when I remove the hinges, I see my 4 holes for each hinge that I need to drill into. Reminder, this is going to be with your Phillips head screws, not your wood screws. So, at this point, you should have attached your hinges, and it should be able to open and close without too much difficulty. Now our next step is a little more simple. We are going to be adding in what are called L screws. Now these boys are going to go in here. So what you're going to want to do is mark these 2 little slots where these indents are, and then open these up, and you're going to screw these in here. And what they're going to function as is when the door wants to stay closed, they rotate so that the door can't open. And when they want to open, they rotate this way so the door can open around them. So our next step is going to be making that little mark and then getting these 2 screws in. So once you've made those little marks, what you're probably going to want to do is what you're going to call a countersink, which is you're going to drill a little hole before putting in your screws, because these screws are going to be put in by hand. So once you got that little hole, you're just going to rotate them in until they have eclipsed that little helix portion. So it's going to take a little bit of gusset, but it'll make it around in no time. So when we said a little gusset, we meant a lot of gusset. So what you might want to do, instead of hurting your poor little hands over this, is you can grab yourself a pair of pliers, and then you can clamp down on top and just rotate, and that goes much easier than going with your bare hands. And once again, you're going to get it till it's just eclipsed that little helix portion, like so. So once these 2 screws are in, you should be able to open it and close it. And when you want to open it, it's already like that. However, when you want to make sure that it's closed and it doesn't open back up, you're going to rotate these sideways. And now it's snug like that. It's like a lock. So our next and our final step is going to be attaching the top door section. Now the top door section, like the right door section, has 2 small indentations for our L screws. Now what we're going to want to do is get these 2 top sections nice and snug up against one another. Remember, we're not gluing this. This is a door. We do not want to glue the door shut. What we are going to do is place our 2 sets of hinges equidistant from the center. Remember, you can use a Sharpie and bubble in those little holes if you ever lose track of where your hinges go. And then from there, we will drill our 2 pilot holes where we can use our pliers to rotate our L screws into place, and then we will be almost done. All right, we've made it to the final step. Congratulations. At this point, our main construction is complete. We have all of our hinges, we have all of our doors, we have all of our walls, and a nice nifty little entrance for the owls to get in. Now, the last thing we want to do is we're going to take a bit of sandpaper or a sanding block. If you don't have one of these, we will give one to you. And we are just going to sand down all the hard edges. So all these lines, all these angles, all these vertical lines, anything hard, anything rigid, anything that you might cut yourself on, so you can get that nice and smooth so it's easier to handle once we've donated them. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for volunteering. Good luck to you in building your owl box. I will be there every step of the way, but remember, this is something you can always refer back to if I am not as able to address a specific problem in your construction. Have a great day.